Employee to Boss. Thanks for joining us today. I got the great Mike here. He's a leader for many, many people. He helps them with vision, and so that's what I've called him in today. Because I know, even for myself, Mike, this journey started a long time ago. I think I was about 26 years old, and I was like, I want to make money. You know, you hear the rich dad, and he talks about the 4 quadrants, and he calls you out, and he's like, you know, you're just a measly employee or self-employed or this or that. You need to become a boss and owner. You need to, you know, be an investor. But he didn't give kind of the fundamentals to me in the concept of how to achieve that. You know, I was able to have the vision by listening to him saying, I want to become a millionaire by, 40 or definitely by 50. You know, it's kind of, strategy A, strategy B. But I had to go with strategy B, 45 now, not quite, over the $1 million mark. And I had to go with that strategy because the vision, the focus, the how to do those things, I didn't achieve them very well. Of course, I could blame it on the recession, but people made a lot of money in the recession, Mm-hmm. So what was the difference between their mindset, vision, versus my mindset? My mindset in the recession was just make it out. Other people's vision was like, let's become millionaires. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't have that vision at that time. And so I lost a lot of time and a lot of money during that time. But I think about all the people who say this. I wish, I hope, I want, I desire. It would be great if, why can't my life look like that? All the people say these words all the time, but are we still saying them after 5 years? Are we still saying them after 10 years? Right. What are we doing to make those words no longer be in our vocabulary? Honestly, I talk to people now who are business owners, and they're not saying, I wish, I desire, I hope, maybe someday I'll be able to, or stuff like that. They're talking about, oh yeah, we just went to Hawaii for 2 weeks. Oh yeah, we rented this yacht. Oh yeah, we did this. Oh yeah, we started this other business. Oh yeah, our house is paid off. Oh yeah, I just bought that new Lexus. They're saying the testimonies behind the wish, I hope, I desire, maybe someday I'll be able to get there. So for me, there's a huge disconnect between point A, the things that we hope, wish, desire, to point B, the testimony of achieving those things. Kind of give me when you talk and coach to people who come to you, and you get them all the time, and they say, hey, I got this idea, and what is kind of your next steps when somebody brings that, hey, Mike, I wish, I hope, I desire. How can you help me to achieve that? And what do you do, and what do you say?
Well, I mean, the first thing to confirm what you said is the difference between a vision and a dream is a plan and a deadline.
Nice.
Okay? So you can have this dream, point A, over here. But if you don't make measurable SMART goals, okay, measurable time-sensitive goals, then and put yourself, have those deadlines, have those markers that you want to hit at certain places, then you're never going to get to point B because you're going to wander and go in circles and do other things. So it's just like going out west to the mountains, okay? You see a mountain peak, and you don't realize you're still 100 miles away, and you're going to go over a ton of little mountains before you get to that big mountain. And it's the same thing with a vision. Vision is something for far off that you're aiming for, but you have to have smart, measurable, time-sensitive, relatable, practical goals that are going to take place on the way for you to get there. And so I always tell people the very first thing about a vision is it's taking it out of Scripture, but the vision has to evolve. So write it down, make it plain, because you'll get a picture at the beginning, you'll get a picture a couple of days later, you'll get, it's a process of receiving a vision for what you want to do. And so as that vision is evolving, then to me, everything begins preparation. And I think that's one of the differences of those who made money during the Great Depression. Rockefellers became rich during the Great Depression. They already were, but I mean, they became really rich after the Depression. Many people became rich during the 2008 recession. Okay, why? Because they had prepared in advance. They knew a goal, but now that opportunity where some people looked at it as trying to survive, I know many businesses that went bankrupt, because of the 2008 recession, is that had that preparation taken place, and they were in a place where things were liquid, low debt, low negative assets, if you want to call it that. And so they were able to take some of the positives they had and use it as an opportunity to expand when other people were selling very cheap because they were just wanting to survive. So they were able to make the money, and they were able to expand exponentially. And so I've really found out that vision takes just a lot of shapes, okay? You're going to see it one way, and then as soon as you begin working towards something, the reality of your situation always tapers your vision, okay? So, for instance, my favorite character in the scripture is Nehemiah, okay? He was in a foreign country, a slave to another king, and he got the vision to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Okay, he remembered what they were like when he lived there. Okay, but when he got there, it says that he went out by night and walked the entire walls of the city. He saw the gates that were burned down. He saw the rocks that were devastated, just destroyed. His vision was getting tapered by the reality of what he had to do, because now he was seeing, okay, this is worse than I thought it was, or this is better than I thought it was. I can use this. This isn't totally broken, or this thing is broken. We're going to have to scrap the whole thing. So your vision is always tapered by reality once you begin to start working it. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I mean, so basically, you can't get even a clear vision until you take a good analysis of what you're trying to get a vision about.
Absolutely.
That was kind of me is like, oh, I want to make $1 million. Well, I made $1 million in my company, but I did not make $1 million. And so there was a huge disconnect. I was like, what happened to the million? And so, I'm evaluating. I'm like, all right, well, then I have to work 10 times harder if I want to make $1 million, right? If I only made $100,000 or $200,000 off of $1 million, that means I have to work 10 times harder than I did that year to get $1 million that year, or then work really hard to save the money or reinvest the money. So there's many different things once you examine the vision. I like that. First, examine the vision.
So I like to use words that we also have in our vocabulary that contain the word vision. Okay, such as revision. Okay, I'm revising because I've allowed the reality to taper what I thought it was, but I didn't see it accurately. Now I have to see where it is. I've recently taken over another company, and the status of my leadership team wasn't where I thought it was. So after months of walking with them and evaluating, and I didn't make any changes for the first year. All I did was talk to people, learn the systems, learn why they did what they did. And I realized, wow, this is more broken than what I thought it was. And it changed the way I saw it. Well, revision is huge.
Sometimes it's hard because, like you were talking about this story about Nehemiah, and he's looking at a fence, which, it's kind of like going to a rehab house. And you're like, oh, it needs new windows. Oh, it needs a door. Oh, it needs a roof. And so sometimes we can see visually something, a structure, easier than we can see what the structure of the team looks like.
Correct.
Because now we're having to look at behaviors, and behaviors kind of go through seasons and stuff like that. So I thought it's great that you're talking about basically you gave and allowed yourself time to look at the structure properly. Wasn't, hey, let's just jump at this. Let's fix this problem. Let's fix that problem. You kind of let the vision linger a little bit and gave it time. That's really cool. I like that, everything's not such a rush. You're not going to become a millionaire this next year.
Correct.
Some people might, and because there's successes that they have are available, but not everybody listening to this podcast is going to get a vision, do a little revision, and then become a millionaire.
Yeah. Well, see, there's also a principle that takes place as you're allowing your vision to be tapered, as you're allowing that revising to happen, is you realize and begin to identify what I call vision killers. Okay. The most common statement I hear is, well, that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a vision killer, because if you're seeing something that you can be later on, you have to change the way you do things. But a lot of people fear change because of what it's going to cost them. Even though they might receive something greater in the end, they just fear of what it's going to cost now. So they're like, nah, this is the way we do it. Okay. Another part of it is, what is the fatigue level of your team? They're in that place for a reason. It's not that they haven't been working hard. It might have been that they didn't have a good leader. It might have been that they didn't have enough payroll. It might have been that they weren't able to be taking care of themselves, or systems were broken in. So you've got, many different things that can kill a vision, from tradition to naysayers to just people who just disagree with you for the sake of disagreeing. You've got complacency. You got fatigue leaders that can kill a vision. And so you have to evaluate all that and know how to guard your vision from vision killers, and to be able to keep that strong, understanding, man, these are fatigue leaders, or man, there's just a bunch of people that just need to go because they're just trying to kill this for the sake of killing it. And I might have to fire a bunch of people, and I might have to bring in new people who believe in this vision. You can't know that until you take the time to go through it and identify those things. And a foolish leader makes changes quick.
So even when you're basically now talking to an employee who hasn't even really stepped out in the vision, they're still at the place of desire, and they're trying to step out into the first steps of this Oregon Trail experience. Oregon Trail was kind of funny because you talked about the mountain. You're like, look, you can see it, but it looks so close. In Oregon Trail, basically these people are like, oh, we're going to go to Oregon. They sell everything. They pack up the wagons. They get out there. And where the Oregon Trail started, you'd become a millionaire basically at the trade store, because they would come in, they'd
Everybody
say, oh, you need rope, you need this, you need that. And they would get these donkeys, and they would have these donkeys pulling these big 2 to 3 tons worth of gear through these mountains. And they said the vision was, we're going to go get this promised land. They said they spent all of their money at the at the trade store, and loaded up, because they're like, oh, we're gonna have all these things. We need all these things. And then down the road, when the hills started getting steeper and the donkeys couldn't pull it, they started unloading everything off of the side. Right. And they said what the trade posts would do is go out there and get all of the stuff that everybody left on they said tons of stuff was on the side of the road. They probably said this is how yard sale started, right? Because there's just people were dumping out pianos, china sets, all of these things, and they would bring them back to the trade post and sell them again. Mm-hmm. And I thought, isn't that interesting? And a lot of people kind of do that. The vision was, let's get a lot of land in Oregon. They were giving out free thousands of acres of land, and people are, oh, I'm going to do this. Maybe they were a farmer in their last land. Maybe they were something else, but basically, it was this hope, right? This desire. And so they took their first steps. They sold everything. They took the second steps. They got ready to get on the Oregon Trail. They took the third steps, and they spent all their money. Mm-hmm. And then they revisioned based on new experiences
because they
down
were
the trail.
standing in front of a mountain.
Right. And so, that doesn't that happen a lot with even business? Somebody who's an employee, and they're basically stepping out, trying their side hustle, don't have the money, don't have the people, don't have the team, don't have anything. And now they're having to revisit and say, is this worth it? Or we keep going forward. What do we unload? What do we go forward with? How does that fit into your revising of the vision?
Well, I think that's critical, because with any vision, I mean, there's basic steps that you have to take. You have to see the vision. You got to get it clear. You, as a leader, have to be able to communicate it effectively to the people, or else the vision will get stopped. If you can't communicate it clearly, people can't buy in, okay? And so you've got to communicate, but while you're communicating and get other people buy in, you have to get your list of supplies. You got to know the things that you've got to do, which takes time, and that's where the arena, where the vision gets revised, because you realize, man, I don't need a piano, okay? I can live without a piano, but I do need rope. Right. Okay, so you can do that, but then as you get in there, then where you bring, I talked about the words that have contain the word vision, but then provision comes in. okay, is that the people that want to invest in what you're doing and believe in the vision that you have will begin to help provide. That way it's not just all your money, it's other people, whether they're providing time to help you do it, whether they're financially resourcing it, whatever arena they provide, your vision unlocks the door for provision.
That's
and
good.
so your communicating of that vision is critical to getting other people to buy in.
And let me ask you this. I mean, so based on results, let's get real honest as listeners, as speakers, based on results. If the provision isn't coming, then it's probably
It's a big sign.
You're probably not casting a good enough vision or communicating correctly, or the vision is not there. I mean,
Correct.
I haven't seen Walmart put down, we're going out of business, but I saw Kmart do it. I'm not seeing Target do it, but I've seen Toys R Us do it. I haven't seen Circus or Best Buy, but I saw Circuit City do it, and so
Sears versus Amazon.
Versus Amazon. And so, one of the things that you were talking about with vision is I kind of try to challenge people. You said this earlier, you said about status quo. How can we change? This isn't status quo. But if we look at everybody who's had great vision, it's all it's all, I can't even get it out. Disruptors of
It is the status
the
quo.
status quo.
Correct.
And so, again, based on results, I have to challenge our thinking. Is our vision to achieve the status quo or disrupt the status quo? Is your vision you got to think, like, even on the Oregon Trail, they would go in these huge groups of people, and you'd have to sit there thinking, all these people are my competition, because we're all trying to go to the same place.
Correct.
Once we get to that same place, guess what? They're all getting acreage. So now they're my competition. And, that's what one of the things that happened is they went on the Oregon Trail, they lost provision, they got to Oregon, and then realized they still got 5-10 more days to their lots because all of the close areas were already taken up. And then all the close areas, everybody's eating the food and all of that. So now you have less resources. Now you have to go to your acreage 10 days away. And now you have to build a house because there's nothing there. And I don't think that we realize that as pioneers of business, going from an employee to a boss, there's steps that we can't even vision that's going to happen.
Right.
And so it's almost revision,
Constantly
revision.
adjust.
And then as we're doing the revisioning constantly, we base it on results and say, well, my revision now brought in new results, which are provision. And so is this something I want to continue with? Mm-hmm. And that's what I like to, honestly, it sounds weird, but I kind of like the money to govern the direction. Does this money help me have more time? Does this effect help me have more money? Mm-hmm. Does this, achieve what I'm trying to do?
But the reality also is does this cause more work hours for me? What is the cost as well as what's the benefits? And you got to have that analysis to know what you're supposed to do. So one of the keys I found, referring back to Nehemiah building the wall, is once he got an accurate picture of the wall, the next thing he did was communicate it to the people. But see, any good leader doesn't just say, hey, you guys made a mess and I'm here to fix it. That's the first thing that will separate.
That's not teamwork?
That is not teamwork. Okay, that will make you a very lonely person, okay? So Nehemiah gets up and he says, you see the distress we're in. You see the condition of our walls. It was all the pronouns of us, we, together in unity. So then the people said, yes, we'll build. The whole next chapter is him assigning, key people in key spots along the wall. And so all their names that we don't know who these people are, but he had every single person in a certain place in a certain wall doing a certain task, okay? And he oversaw it. Well, soon afterward, the enemy began to come against them, and they had to change the way they were working. They held a spear in one hand, and they held a rock in another hand because they were building up the wall. So they had to taper how they worked for a certain season in order to get that result. So any leader who is bringing that vision down, you're going to have the naysayers, you're going to have the enemies the other people that you're in competition with saying stuff about you, doing these different things. For a season, you're going to have to adjust the way you work with your team in order to get through, to get a consistent product, to get a consistent way of advertising it, getting it out there, consistent sales. And once you build that up, then you have the security of knowing your system's in place. And then you go back to evaluate, all right, what can we make better? What can we make stronger? And you consistently go through there. So you'll hit 1,000 horizon, 1,000,000 horizon, 10 million horizon. You'll hit all these different horizons, but your vision never stopped. I want to be a millionaire, or I want to have this business. It's just your levels and your taper, and your SMART goals hit those different levels. And so one of the things I wanted to bring out here is that the timing of your presentation is critical, okay? Because if you present it too early without understanding the facts and the reality of the situation, what are the people going to say? They're going to reject it because it's not accurate. You're not really seeing what's going on, okay? If you say it too late when you could have already done something, they're already given up. Okay, so it's critical that a leader brings in that time and he says, hey guys, here's where we are. So you're talking about the mountains, okay? What if along the way, Todd Bolsinger, in his book called Canoeing the Mountains, is a story of Lewis and Clark, that's where I grew up in Montana, where Lewis and Clark came right through. They hit the Continental Divide, they hit the Rockies. How do you canoe a mountain? Okay, they had canoes. They thought it was a waterway all the way through. Their map showed a waterway all the way through. Well, guess what? That map wasn't an accurate picture. So they had to revise their vision. That thank God they had Sacagawea with them, who could help them with the Indian tribes that they were going to encounter. But she knew the way through the pass. So what'd they do? They left everything at the foot of the mountain, carried only what they needed. And they still brought the canoes, but they brought them up the mountain and over, so when they hit the water on the next side, they could go all the way to the ocean. But they had to completely change their model of leadership from what it took leaving Missouri till they hit the Continental Divide. And so I hope I'm making sense with this, is that when you hit those obstacles, you have to have flexibility in your vision. Because yes, your vision doesn't change, that far off horizon doesn't change, but your strategy and your methods have to change. So when the recession hit, how many people were able to be flexible and still stay in business? How many people had to shut their doors because we don't have room to flex? We can't handle this. We can't change this. And so he talks about in Canoeing the Mountains that the key to leadership is flexibility and adjusting your vision and adjusting your methods for the situations you're in, situational leadership, if you will. And so your vision has to be flexible, or else, you'll throw everybody off and people will stop along the way.
Yeah, if I look back at my life, I thought I was going to become a millionaire in real estate. Why? Because Robert Kiyosaki became millionaire in real estate. So I was like, oh, he did it. I'm going to do it. And sometimes we take on other people's vision, and what I think really is important for vision is what is your vision and what do you want to accomplish? So then I had a flooring company and, I was doing a lot of work, and then I realized that my vision wouldn't get me to that status based off of me looking around at everybody else. I looked around at everybody who was an installer and said, none of them are millionaires. So then I started looking around everybody who had a tile store, and I said, well, they're closer, but none of them are millionaires. And, then I started meeting some people in Atlanta, and they had it going on. And so my vision has changed over the people that I've been able to see achieve the vision that I wanted. Mm-hmm. So my vision took on their vision, who was, the person who was able to achieve that. But even in that, my vision doesn't line up exactly like, quote unquote, my mentors that I met in Atlanta. We're in a little bit different industry. We're doing things a little bit different, and so your vision is going to be unique to you, and it should. But we have to, based on results, look and see how big our vision is. You know, does it meet the local level? Does it meet $100,000 payroll? Does it meet $500,000 payroll? Does it meet $1 million? You know, I'm talking to a guy right now, and he said his first year he went from $50,000 to $500,000, and he wants to go to 1.2 this next year. That's his vision. And so he's like, what do I need to do to achieve that? And he's thinking, all right, well, do I need to add another crew? Do I need to do different jobs? Do I need to do these different things? And then I have this other guy, and he's making $80,000 a year, and he goes into his first 6 months is $2.2 million. He just got a contract after that for $1.5 million. He's going to do $3.7 million in like his first 7 months of business. His vision was different because his experience was different. They're both in construction industry and stuff like that. The one guy is working on homes, the other guy's working on commercial property. And so their vision, even though in the same industry, is different. And because of that, he's able to collect more money. I mean, the guy's definitely going to do over $5 million a year. Now, even though, this is what I love, even though he personally never made $5 million a year, his vision was able to obtain that because he was in the industry that said you should be making $5 million a year. And I think that's, you know, important for us is look at how much we're making, but how much should we be making? You know, what does the industry project that we could be making, which is vision, right? And so like when Nehemiah's going around the walls, he's looking, he's saying, well, that fence is broke. I not only need to fix it, but I need to make sure that if it gets attacked again, it won't be right. It won't be broken again. You know, obviously, if that door is off the hinge, then that hinge probably wasn't the right size hinge to hold the weight of that door. We need to reevaluate that. Correct. And so really for me, vision is constantly evaluating things around you, you know, to make them even better than what they were before. You know, like you even said, I'm sure, you know, when Lewis and Clark were there, they had their Oregon Trail experience where they're like, oh, these are everything we need. And then you said they laid it down. And so we're seeing that theme over and over with vision. When you want to do and achieve great things, one, there's going to be some things you have to lay down. Mm-hmm. Two, you're going to have to be flexible with your plan. Three, you know, you're going to have some losses. You know, I mean, I love the people who are like, oh, I'm never going to lose in business. Psych. You know, I know that's an old term, but, you know.
Yeah, we just definitely date ourselves. Right. But, you know, it's those failures, quote unquote, that allow you to readjust and to go forward with more knowledge. So failure isn't failure unless you quit. A setback's not tragic unless you quit and don't handle and learn from it and go forward. And so even once you get your vision, once you make it plain, you begin to get your supplies up, you begin to get an idea, then you get into the arena and you allow that tapering to happen. You allow the revision process to happen. And man, I thought it was going to look like this, but it really doesn't. It looks like this. It's better or worse. It could be either of those. Then you get your team in place that is supposed to help you with it. Okay. And you've communicated the vision to them where they buy into that. Then you've got a system of those smart, measurable goals that you're trying to attain. And that, you know, in a timely manner, they're relatable. They're able to, okay, in 1 year, here's what we're looking to have. And so you push them to that. So one man's ceiling is another man's floor. Okay. And so, okay, that 1,000 mark was great, but now it's our floor for the next year. We're already here, so we've got to go on. So one thing I've learned in just my experiences is when I'm at 200, I have to act like I'm at 500. What are the systems I need in place at 500? Because if I wait to start putting them in when I'm at 500, I'm going to be behind the 8 ball. Right. So you've got to begin to what I call envision, okay? If I'm going here and I get here, what do I need to have in place before I get there? It's different than dreaming because envision has a plan attached to the vision. Okay. So when I hit that $10 million mark, all right, what am I going to have to do to get $100 million? All right. Okay. I've got 500 people in my organization. What do I have to envision to get 1,000 people in my organization. And it's those answers that the leader has to be able to be working ahead in order to get those systems in place so that when you get there, you're ready for it. It's the old proverb, you don't plan for war during war. You plan for war during peacetime so that when war starts, you're ready. That's where envision, another word that contains the word vision, comes into play. Is that you're constantly envisioning, okay, I hit this mark, now what's my next mark? That's how you set your goals, is through envisioning.
But, it's interesting because like we were talking about the story of Nehemiah, and they didn't go to war and lay down the call to continue
Correct.
fortifying the gates. And so it's interesting. Sometimes, we get so distracted of, I got to handle this situation, that we forget the scheduling, we forget the finance, we forget the work that we're doing and stuff like that. I like to try to divide up my company into 3 parts, and basically sometimes one part gets attacked. So for me, the 3 parts are the front runner, the middle part is the manager, and the last part is the tail end bring it up guy, And so like whenever I have a problem, I try to divide it into those 3 parts to say, okay, where's this problem need to be solved at? Is it a problem that is in the front runner, advertising or sales, or what techniques are we doing to bring in new jobs? Or is it the middle, management? All right, do we need more crews? Do we need, what do we need to do to get these jobs done faster? Or is it the tail end, finances or lawyers or stuff like that? Because basically, I could have a problem in the tail end with a lawsuit or something like that, but I don't want the tail end to affect keep on running or the management of the jobs, because then the whole company shuts down. Correct. Because basically I've got the whole company tied up in the tail end of something.
So let me pick up there. There's another word that contains the word vision, and I call it division or division, okay? Most people look at that as negative. I look at it as a positive because it's exactly what you said. Most businesses, they have certain divisions in their business structure in order to help accomplish the goal. So all you're doing is dividing the vision into parts and getting key people in those parts to help run it, but they're all pointing toward the vision. So you look at a government structure, they have this division and this division and this division and this division, but they're all part going forward to accomplish the vision of it. And so dividing it up into manageable parts is a key to leadership, because a leader can't do all of it. And he needs to focus on what he needs to focus on, because it's like a conductor for a choir. I teach this in leadership class. I call it the law of the orchestra. He's the only one that has all the parts of the music. He knows where every person's supposed to play and what that sound is supposed to accomplish. All the people in the orchestra only have their own music. He divided the vision into parts, got the people to carry their parts, but he, as the orchestra leader, the conductor, he knows what sound, what vision that's supposed to create. But if he gets off that podium and comes down and plays a part, what happens? There's a vacuum in what that person who's holding the whole vision together has, and the whole orchestra will crash because there's no conductor.
Stock market just opened.
Nice. There we go. I was like, all right.
It's 9:30. Sorry, we just set that TV up and I didn't realize we had the volume out of the way.
And so that if that conductor loses his role, okay, the whole orchestra will suffer because nobody sees the big picture. So a leader has to divide the parts of the vision down to allow other people to carry them. That's what I call division. It's not a negative thing. But what happens when a leader tries to handle 2 visions at once? Nobody can ride 2 horses with one butt. Okay, we try, but what happens? We crash and burn. So that's what I call bivision, is you have 2 of them and you're trying to see in 2 different ways and you can't do it. You have to be able to focus on that vision and handle it. And so what that brings back, one of my favorite parts of Nehemiah is a thing called planned neglect. Is I'm purposefully saying no to something that will distract or take time from what I have to do. It might be a good thing and it might be needed, but I can't do it as a leader. And so I purposefully say no. Sometimes I let that plate drop and people are like, well, why aren't we doing this? I'm like, that's a great question. Why aren't you doing this? Because I can't do it. And if you want to see it done, then you come help me do it. Well, I can't either. Okay, well, then we're just going to let that plate lay there. Okay. Or they'll pick it up and start running with it. But if I get down off my wall, so to speak, off the place that I have to be, the whole organization will suffer if I'm not leading. So Nehemiah was building a wall. The enemies came against him and they said, hey, I want you to meet me at this time in this place. And he replied, I'm doing a great work. Why should I come down off the wall and meet you and let the work stop? It was exactly what you said. He couldn't sacrifice the work and the momentum of the organization to deal with distractions. You have to have planned neglect. You got to be able to say no to something, or else you are going to have all those time stealers take you away from what you as a leader are called to do.
Well, it's interesting because myself, when I got into real estate, I had the business, like Robert Kiyosaki. He's like, start the business, make the money, buy real estate. So I did that. That was about the extent of my plan. And so I made money, and I would gouge my company with the profits to put into real estate. And then my company would suffer for like 6 months because I basically took all the profits out. And so, but I had this real estate, I had this house, and then I'm renting it. And then, there's problems with the house. And so constantly I was gouging my company to pay for the real estate business. And even with the contracts, people were moving in, they're moving out and all of that. And I realized for me, I didn't really like that. Even though it was a good model and other people were making money at it, that's great. But for me, it didn't work. And so I had to revision, look at it and say, how does this fit other people's model? And I was like, who's making the most money at the real estate market? And I said, oh, the banks are. Well, what do the banks do? Well, the banks don't rent houses. They manage money. And so they loan to people an asset in return for lots and lots of money. You buy a house for $100,000, you're probably going to pay the bank $250,000 for that over 30 years loan in interest. So I was like, I need to become the bank because they have marble floors and they have big buildings and all that. And so I changed every one of my rental properties into owner finances. It gave me so much more time. I had so much more money because I wasn't doing repairs. I wasn't gouging my company. And to me, that was a problem because, where it was division. See, everything was one vision, the real estate. But the real estate was the vision that was taking the most money. And so what was making the most money was the tile business. And so I'm like, why do I let something gouge exponential profits for long-term reward? And so I realized based on results that it was me. The problem was me. It wasn't the tile business and it wasn't the real estate business. It was how my system was set up. Once I changed the system, we reallocated and did some different things. But then after the years of 10, 15 years of they started paying themselves off, and I'm like, is this a vision that I want to continue for the rest of my life, or do I make more profits? Because on real estate, you make like 10% a year. So it's like, why would I continue on something that makes 10% a year when I could reinvest into a tile business that makes 100, 300, 400% in a year? So the revisioning, and then I had to divide it up, right? I had to say, the real estate business has to stand on its own. The tile business has to stand on its own. The other investments that I do have to stand on their own. Otherwise, I might take $20,000, $30,000, put it into something, but after that point, it has to stand on its own. Right. And so I divided all of those things up. And, we have to understand what we're doing. I had a guy the other day, actually the guy who did 50 to 500, and he's like, I'm going to do 1.5 million. And then he goes, and here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to build a spec house, and I'm going to build a house for me, and I'm going to, start working for high-end, clients, doctors, lawyers, stuff like that, and do their remodel work. And I'm going to do commercial work out of town, and I'm going to do the repair work and business. And I said,
kill himself.
I said, no, you won't. And he's like, yes, I will. And I said, you can't. You literally, because here's the problem, and I don't think we understand this, is each one of those models has to have infrastructure, has to have its own vision, its own people,
It has to have its own marketing. It has to have its own crew to do it. The
Right.
whole 9 yards.
Ideas, I hope, I wish, I desire, are great as long as they're manageable aspects. I want to become a millionaire is not a manageable aspect. It's really not a vision, because there's how do you do that? I don't know. I'm gonna become a YouTube millionaire. All right. Well, what have other people done and invested in time and content to become that? Do you have that roadmap to be able to do that? Or if you say, well, I'm going to become a finance guru, I'm going to become this guru, I'm going to become that guru, I'm going to do this. They're all different businesses.
Correct.
Do you really have the time and finances to do that?
So he has to decide, what can I give away? What am I going to be solely responsible for? Just like you. All those divisions, your real estate part, your tile company, your investments, they're all still part of you. It's all your main vision, but you've allowed other people in to help run those things, even though you're giving oversight. But you're not installing tile anymore. Why? Because if you get down off your podium and go install a tile, nobody's seeing the big picture. That's your job. And so as a leader, you've got to keep the vision before you at all times. And anything that takes away from the vision, you have to say no to. That's part of that plan neglect is, listen, this is a great idea, but is it going to help me accomplish my vision? No, then I can't do it. I can't allocate time, resources, mental effort and time as well. I can't do it because it's going to take me away from these things.
And we see that all the time, distractions. And it can be a simple distraction of, this delivery didn't show up. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do? You get, I'm going to drive to go get that delivery, and then I'm going to drive it to the job site. Then I'm going to drive home. Well, the problem is you just allocated 8 hours, to go do all those things, which it needed in the office, So, and that's one of the things I've kind of looked at with vision is, where's my position in that vision? And then what things do I need to have other people come in to help maintain that vision? So I do like the thing where I love these different, 5-6 different visions. Do you have any other visions to help out?
Actually, no, those are about the only ones that I use in my teaching.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Go ahead and because so basically you start off with a vision.
Correct.
After a little while of experience, that's a big part is let experience or revelation or understanding revise the first vision.
Understanding is a key word there, because you got to have the vision, but you have to have the take time to know the why. Why are you doing this? Because if you don't have the why, you won't pay the price for it. So if you don't understand, hey, this is what I'm doing, but here's why, then when other things come along that look better, you'll give up your vision in order to embrace that, unless you're holding on to your why. So that understanding is critical to your vision development.
Well, you've had to let go of different things. Do you feel like you've been able to achieve your full vision of what your life calling is?
No, not at all.
So do you think you're going to have to let some things go on the Oregon Trail?
I'm absolutely. I'm standing at a few mountains, and I'm like, okay, do I want to carry this? And there's things that I'm having to learn to say no to that I've loved to do, but I just can't do them anymore. And so what I'm giving myself to will produce far more results and far more value if I give myself to it than the things that I might have actually loved to do, but I just can't do them anymore. So that's part of that revision process, is God is honing down, this is the area I need you to focus on, and you got to say no to good things, but they might not be the thing.
Well, and those good things might be a great thing to somebody else.
Correct.
So as long as you're there, nobody can get into that spot or see the greatness that they could be in that spot because you're there. I was thinking about this the other day with the baby boomers and stuff like that, and I've heard so many people in the market say that, oh, this guy retired, this guy sold his business, oh, this happened. And I'm sitting there saying, opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. And Peacock just sold his business to the Langdales. And so I'm just seeing that people are stepping out of companies.
Right.
Well, the thing is, as soon as they're not there, somebody else needs to be there to pick up the phone. Not necessarily that phone number at Peacock, but what about your phone number? So to me, it's a great time to have vision, to step out, to experience so that you can revision. Just start there. Just say, I had the vision to start so I can get revision.
And so I think that we're living in the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of our country right now, is because the boomers are retiring and Gen X is stepping up to for the next 20 years to be the workforce to do it. The millennials are coming into the workforce. Gen Y, which is between the millennials and Gen X, are in the workforce. But the most transfer of wealth is going to Gen Xers right now. And then it's going to go down, as our generation begins to retire and do all that stuff. So the time right now is critical. It's a huge time of opportunity. If you go back to the story of Nehemiah, there was a guy named Ezra that tried to rebuild the walls before Nehemiah came. And he worked for 13 years and didn't get the walls done. Nehemiah came and he did it in 52 days. Okay? And it shows you, what a man with a vision, with a plan, with able to build a team who goes through the flexibility of the revision and allows it to taper it, but who also fights for the vision and who doesn't allow those things to distract. And even though they wrote letters to the king lying about him, he didn't let the work stop. He went through and he paid the price for it, and he was able to accomplish something in 52 days that somebody couldn't do in 13 years. Think about that in business. People who've been in business for 13 years that you've been able to do in a year what they've dreamed of doing for 13 years. What's the difference? Okay, it's a time of opportunity. It's a season that we're in, and a huge transfer of wealth, a huge, the online businesses are just absolutely booming and taking over and changing the way we do commerce. Okay, and it's been that way, but it's even at a greater magnitude right now. And so one of the keys of the vision is you got to make it practical. You got to give people practical steps to take. And so once you get the vision, once you understand it, once you communicate it to people, then you've got to keep the vision practical. Because if people don't see how the vision is going to impact their daily life, why has Amazon been so successful? Because it's practical. What is one-click shipping? Okay? I purchase it and it automatically has everything programmed in. I get it in 2 days and all I did was hit a button. They are the most practical company out there. Okay? Same with our visions for business. What is the practical things we need to do? And then once you make it practical, then you have your SMART goals in place and you constantly set them up. Okay, evaluate. Did we hit it? Okay, we made it, or well, we missed this one barely, but why? Okay, let's redo it and set another goal. And you're constantly adjusting and setting goals. And before you know it, you've went over 10 mountains and you are at your mountain.
Yeah, my uncle told me, basically, he kind of gave me my first aha moment of business. He said, you're going to learn 80% of the flooring business in 1 year. And I was like, I can learn that much? Mm-hmm. And then he said, it's going to take you 20 years to learn the other 20%. And not that the other 20% is that hard.
It's just experience.
It's just experience. He says, you are in Florida, and so you're not going to experience what it's like for freezing temperature. Well, now I'm in Maine, and I'm experiencing freezing temperature,
Mm-hmm. In basements.
Right, in basements and different things. And so, I did tile for a long time, and then I experienced carpet, and then I experienced carpet tile. And so those new products that came out were new experiences, some good, some bad, but none of them stopped the company. Even my bad experiences didn't stop the company.
Because you learn from them.
And the good experience did not allow me to retire. I've had some doozies of profits, but it wasn't to the point of, let me buy my yacht and stop. Mm-hmm. I think, kind of even at a millionaire status is there's still desire out there, still vision out there. I don't know that vision ever dies. I mean, even when you talk about retiring, What do you want to do now that you're retired? What do you want your money to do? What do you want your life to do? What do you want to do with the grandkids? What do you want to do with your time? I mean, now that you're retired, do you want to write books? So to me, vision is great because it can take you to your deathbed and even beyond. I mean, your vision doesn't die when you die. That's the greatest thing about, that it basically can create legacy forever and ever and ever. I mean, we still talk about the Model T. Well, is Ford here? No, he's dead. And here we're talking about the Model T still.
But look at what cars now. They're self-driving cars. I mean, look at how far we've come because a man had a vision.
Well, and he didn't think about self-driving cars when he was producing the Model T.
Not at all.
Now, he did an interesting thing, too, when we were talking about division, is he divided up on the assembly line.
Correct.
I love that idea. And I've actually used that idea for my business. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do an assembly line. I know you're like, well, how can you do an assembly line on tile? Well, I can have a prep person. I can have somebody carrying the tile and getting it in place. I can have an installer. And then I can have somebody come back and do the cuts. I can have a grouter. I can have somebody come back and finish. And so I just broke down installing tile, which would be one person, two people doing that job, into 7 different categories. Well, how fast can you go then?
I say, does that make you faster or slower? And that's the evaluation of your jobs, and then you revise your vision according to what that information brings you.
Well, I would have these crews of 5 people come on, and I'd see one guy on the bucket, or I'd see 2 or 3 standing around. I'm like, what are you guys doing? The waste,
the manpower
of manpower that you're sitting here. Why don't you spread out? I'm like, so. Sometimes people don't even see their own waste in what they're doing, based on results.
Correct.
And I always challenge them to challenge everybody to achieve the best that they can. And that's the only way that Nehemiah was able to do it in 52 days is with his team, challenge them, but guess what? They didn't have to fight after the 52 days and build because they were inside.
Correct. They were now protected by and so they reap the benefit of their work. So when nothing gets me more excited than when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I have this vision. What do you think? Okay. Because I love brainstorming with them. I love seeing their passion come out as they declare to me their vision. And my job is to help them think of things they wouldn't think of in order to prepare them and to help make them successful. So one of the things that I always end that conversation with is, okay, you've got the vision down, you've got it plain, you're getting a glimpse of what it could be. Now, what are those daily jobs you have to do to make sure this happens? I call it critical success factors. What are the jobs I have to do every day to get that vision? Okay. And so for everybody, it's different according to what arena you're in and what vision you're in. But there's some things that you have to do every day. It's the whole, how do you eat an elephant? I just got to take a bite at a time. Okay. Which blow with the sledgehammer broke the rock, the first or the last? Okay. But every hit was important in between. So what are those critical things I have to do every day? You get, what is the 80-20 rule? Is that, 80% of your workload will be accomplished in 20% of the things that you do. Okay. And so what are those bigger things I have to do that are going to get the biggest result? That 20 that I don't like to do, that remaining 20%, delegate. Okay. So one of my critical success factors is, am I delegating properly to the right people who can get the job done without me having to go back, check on them, make sure they're doing it right, do it for them if they're not doing it right, because that just takes more time and keeps me from doing what I need to do. So everybody has to understand their critical success factors. For you, okay, I've got, who's my foreman over my tile business? Do I meet with him weekly? Do I need to meet with him daily? Okay, who's handling, the real estate side? Do I have somebody in charge of my marketing? Are we picking up jobs? Are there new jobs in the funnel line? What are those things you have to do every time that are just critical to your success that only you can do? And so that's something that whether it's, hey, I want to start a daycare. Okay, what are those critical things you have to do? Do you have, you keep your place clean? Because if they walk in and your place isn't clean, they're not going to let kids there. I mean, just little examples, but it's something that somebody has to do regularly.
Well, and like you said, if you're not into detail, but you know somebody who can help, have them come in and challenge the details of things.
Correct.
I don't think there's any such thing as procrastinator. I just think that we don't do what we don't want to do. People are like, oh, I'm a procrastinator. No, you're not. You just don't do what you don't want to do. So I think that's okay, but I think we need to say, based on results, you don't do what you don't want to do. So then get somebody to do what you don't want to do.
Correct.
Like, be honest. Like, I think we force ourselves too much to try to be this perfect person. Mm-hmm. We look at Bill Gates, and who's a tremendous worker, analytical and coder and all of these things. But he really is not doing everything that's wrapped around his name. Not even close.
How many millionaires are under him?
Right.
I mean, how many people did he make millionaires by delegating the things he needed to delegate?
And if he never delegated, then they wouldn't have the opportunity to be millionaires. So even the people around you right now aren't being able to perform at their best because
You're not holding on to things
because we're not making it available.
So I had a sign on my door at college that said, "I'll procrastinate tomorrow." Yeah. Okay, because I didn't want to do those things I didn't want to do. Well, what I've had to learn as a leader is that there are some things I don't like, but I have to do because that's what leaders have to do. And nobody else can do that job a leader can. The key is delegating the things that you can delegate. Don't delegate the things that are your responsibility, because if you do, then somebody else will begin to take the vision of your business. Somebody else will begin to take your staff, and somebody else will begin to take things that only you are supposed to have, and they'll put a different DNA into it, a different culture. And before you know it, you're going to why aren't we doing my vision? Well, it's because you delegated things that only you as a leader are supposed to do, and that will have a tremendous negative effect.
I just was thinking about it because we were talking about it before, where you're talking about the transfer of wealth, and we value technology, and there's a tremendous amount of money that's being made in technology, but kind of there's this underlying thing that I see that nobody's talking about it, which I want to scream from the rooftops because, well, one, it's how I made my money, but two, I think it's a phenomenal business, and that is, working with your own hands. I mean, tradesmen, service business. And here's what I've seen. So if you can see the market and understand, you'll be able to make millions. There used to be wood shop. Mm-hmm. There used to be mechanics. There used to be welding. There used to be all of these things in high schools, and they cut it all out. And so the trade business right now, average person in the trade business is 60 years old or older. So think about it. Real craftsmen, traders in the flooring business or mechanics or any of these things. And I do know they're younger people, but the match of quality and skill is not there.
Unparalleled.
And so everybody wants to get into the tech industry, and I sit there and I say, there's a huge market on services and trades and skills that is untapped. If you look at a plumber, and he's making $250,000 a year, and he comes to your house and he charges you $800 or $1,200, or he does a septic tank and it's $3,400 or $5,000. You got to sit there and realize that my lawyer is $250 to $300 an hour. My plumber is $250 to $300 an hour. And it was a huge aha moment. They didn't go to school for 8 or 12 years. They didn't have $300,000, $400,000 in loans for, going to be a lawyer. And they have a truck and a phone and a website, and they're making as much and sometimes more than what lawyers are making. And it was interesting. I was talking to a lawyer the other day. I was telling my son, I said, "Oh, you need to go intern for that lawyer this summer." And the lawyer turned to me and he says, "No." He says, "There's 300 lawyers in our town. But if you look at how many plumbers there are, 10. If you look how many electricians there are, less than 10. You know what I'm saying?" And so I think we've totally missed this huge huge opportunity of
What
average
happens
Joe
when technology
skills.
breaks?
Somebody
Who's
needs
going to come
it.
fix it?
Yeah, you need
Okay.
for robots. You need somebody to fix it. You need a programmer. There are. I totally believe in the mechanical world of technology, but I saw the other day a brick layer, and it could lay is a mechanical robotic machine. It could lay 2,000 bricks compared to an average person does 500 bricks. But here's the thing. That robot could not set itself up.
It can't make mud.
That robot can't make mud. That robot can't, add the brick. It can't put the. Yeah. So, for me, if we're smart, we can incorporate robotics and technology and stuff like that with tradesmen skills and things of that sort. To me, that industry is untapped like nobody's business. I know lots of people who are turning down lots of work, and they're even saying things like, I'm 2-3 months out. One guy, I just talked to him, basically has work lined up for, the next 8 months. I've got work lined up for the next 3 years.
Dude.
I've got contracts going out for the next 3 years.
That's crazy.
Stuff they haven't even started building yet that's going to take them at least 2 years to build. I've already, and so, when you're talking about project into an industry that needs work, where's your vision now take you to? What industry does that look like? There's a huge opportunity here that I see. And if somebody could just get the vision of, it'll be my side hustle until it takes, and I'll do it.
I forgot who it was that said it, but this boils down what you just said is we all have the same horizon, but we don't have the same vision. We all have the same sky, but a lot of people see it totally different. And so I think just as everybody has different levels of potential of leadership, some can lead 10,000, some can lead 1,000, some can lead 100. They're all leaders. Their just spheres are different, just like your businessman. You got one that's doing 3.7 and one that did 500,000. What's the difference? It's just their leadership capacity, okay? They all have the same horizon, but they see it totally different. And so you're going to have people that make that market, the way you see the market. Man, I could do something with this. 10 other business people are never going to see it. They're just going to say, hey, let's just keep going down technology. Let's do this. And so we've got to be able to find people who are able to look at the horizon and see it a different way and make the most of those opportunities. We all have the same horizon, we just see it different.
I remember I was working at a school. The Georgia lottery was, giving into the school system, and they were building schools like crazy. And I was working late one night, and the guy said something to me, building lockers. He said, how much money you make? And I said, yeah, I don't know. And I had to think about it. And he goes, well, I hope you're making over 100,000 because you're working 9 o'clock at night. And he says, I don't know how anybody lives for less than 100,000. And this is like almost 20 years ago, And so like 100,000 was like a lot of money. And I was like, 100,000? He goes, oh, yeah, I'd never get out of bed for less than 100,000. And I'm like, huh. And it challenged me because then I added it up. And I was like, no, I'm not making 100,000. And the view of, like you said, his view was, I'm not going to do it unless I make it. And I realized that I didn't have a view in mind of money. I was just going to work.
No.
I didn't have a view in the mind of money of this is my target. This is my vision of the target that I want to achieve. And that was my first view is, all right, how do I get $100,000? Mm-hmm. That's as big as it was. How do I get $100,000? Well, then once I accomplished that, it was like, all right, how do I get 250? Divided it up. I didn't go straight from, $30,000, $40,000 a year to a million.
Right.
I just said, how can I get to 250? How do I get to 500,000? How do I get to 1 million? Then once I got to 1 million, I plateaued because I choked on the next number. It's like, I know you think like, do I go to 5 million? Do I go to 10 million? So I kind of choked, I was like, well, I'll just stay here for a little while,
Well, Helen Keller said everybody has eyes, but not everybody has vision.
Well,
Okay, which means there's going to be some people like just what you said. Some people choke and they can't see it. Some people are going to say, well, heck, let's go on. I can see you doing this. Okay. So one of the key things I've had to learn is in the people that I get as part of my team, I got to realize some people are not going to see the vision. Mark Rutland calls them just he has 4 types of people: a finder, a minder, a binder, and a grinder. Okay. Everybody's got to have a grinder, somebody to do the grunt work, somebody just to do it. But it doesn't matter if they see the vision or not, because what they're doing isn't really, it's affecting the vision and helping us get there, kind of like the person making mud. Okay, they need to see enough of the vision to say, hey, if I don't make this job stops. But I'm not expecting them to see the horizon and the $10 million profit that I want the company to make. So I've got to make sure that I'm not imposing on the people, all right, do you see this? Do you see this? I got to understand how they're wired and what they're able to see and what they're not. It's like the janitor that John F. Kennedy went to visit NASA, and he met the janitor and he said, I'm putting a man on the moon by cleaning these floors. He tied his job of janitorial to the space mission, because he believed in Kennedy's vision. Kennedy was the one that had to see the moon, not the man doing the janitor. He just had to tie it to it. And so my job is to get a team that can tie it to it, even though they don't see it, because not everybody's going to see it.
Well, and even for employees, who want to become bosses with side hustles, your neighbor has a lawnmower. You might think, oh, he has a lawnmower, he doesn't need a lawnman. But can you make him see, hey, I could be your lawn man, put that lawnmower up? Mm-hmm. I think that's the challenge sometimes is knowing what you can do and having other people see the vision of what you're capable of doing. Kind of like we even feel like that as an employees. It's like, man, I wish the boss would just give me the opportunity. I think, you have to be basically your cheerleader for other people to see the quality of things that you can bring to pass so that they'll hire you and let you do the things you do. If you sit and wait, one, you're missing huge amounts of years and opportunities.
Right. And experience.
And there's no guarantee that you'll ever hit that opportunity of somebody, glorifying you, saying, man, they're the best lawnmower service business.
See, I would call that a dream.
Is
you're sitting there waiting, hoping this dream happens, but you have no strategic plan, you have no measurable time frame or results that you're going to encounter. That's the difference between a dream and a vision. A vision accomplishes it because it has a plan attached to it. A dream has no accountability. And so a man sitting there, God, I could make millions doing this. I forgot who the man was that said that the graveyard is the richest place in the world, because there is buried all the dreams and all the inventions that people didn't have the courage to do. Okay? So vision is spelled R-I-S-K. Mm-hmm. It's a risk. And so you have to put those plans in place, and you might fail, you might make it, but you're going to learn and you're going to go forward. But a dreamer will never risk. They'll just sit there and hope it happens, and they won't do anything about it.
Wow, that's really good. And sometimes you forget, am I daydreaming? Am I wishing? Or am I putting a vision to this thing?
I mean, what was it that sent the Wright brothers to actually build a plane? They started with a bicycle. And they realized ramping the bicycle and doing the things they've done with a bicycle, wow, I wonder if we could fly. I wonder if we could do this. So a dream can turn into a vision because you begin to take steps to implement it. But if you don't ever take those steps and set those goals and set those markers, a dream can never become a vision.
Yeah, sometimes it's funny because we forget that to become a millionaire, there were steps that needed to be taken. Mm-hmm. We just look at the yacht, the cars, the money, the business, but it started with taking steps. Mm-hmm. It started with small achievements. It started, yes, some people won the lottery, but where are they all at, won the lottery? Not all of them are still millionaires. Why? Right. Because basically that was an inflated it was a dream that they got, that they wanted.
They weren't prepared for
and they
it.
weren't prepared for it. It wasn't the steps that got them there. Even if a recession were to come today, I wouldn't like it, but I would do a whole lot better than I did last time at it.
You'd learn the lessons you learned from last time, and you go forward.
I actually listen to people right now, and they're like they're like, oh, I wish the market's going to dump. I hope the market's going to dump. And it's like, do you understand what you're saying? You're asking for hard times. But to them, I'm not asking for hard times. I'm asking for opportunity because I have the steps to make that an opportunity. Right. It's not a dream. It's the vision of the steps to take in all opportunities.
They already see what could happen if this happened.
Right.
It's a vision. And so they're preparing themselves now. When it does happen, bam, I can do this, I can buy this, I can do this. I've got myself in a place where enough is liquid assets. I can move this. I don't have the overhead. I can make a ton in this opportunity if this were to happen. That's a vision. Because they're planning and they're preparing for it already.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I always try to tell people, if you can see the vision of where you want to go, you'll be able to get there. If you can't see the vision of where you want to go, you're never going to get there. I've been on some roads, and I love the driving analogy. Some roads, they go up and they turn, and you don't know. And then you see this big valley and this, city where it started with one person going building a house, or a tent, and then, building a store or stuff like that. But can we just look at the today picture of things, like even with Amazon, we look at the today picture of it, but what did it look like for Jeff Bezos 25 years ago? It was just a desire, a hope.
Correct.
We forget that Jeff Bezos had a desire and a hope, and then had lots of desires and hopes along the ways, and had lots of failures along the ways. We forget about the
made
challenges.
A lot of adjustments. He learned from it. So one of the issues our society is facing is that the people coming out of college right now want to live at the level that it took their parents 30 years to get to. Every generation struggles with this. Is that, when I become that age where I'm on my own and independent, well, I want to live at the level that I grew up living, but it took my parents 30 years to get there. And people don't want to go through the process. So then they go through a phase where reality hits them and they realize, wow, I do got to get up and go to work every day when I don't want to. I'm not allowed just to sit here and take out a loan. I actually have to pay that loan back. Okay,
credit card debts, yeah.
And so they're crippled because they want to be at a certain level and they think they're entitled to that without going through the process that it took their parents 30 years to get to. And so we have to train people to endure the process and to not despise small beginnings. Bezos started small and grew big, and even the scripture talks about don't despise the small beginnings, as you might start here, but don't look down on it. Say, be thankful for it, learn your lessons and build slowly afterward. That way it's healthy. If you inflate too quick, you're going to pop too quick because you don't have structure in place to handle it. That's why how many lottery winners are bankrupt? Right. Because they didn't have the thing in there.
Quick up, quick down. Absolutely. And, for me, like I kind of think about this thing long term, I'm even looking at building this content now. I'm like, all right, for the next 30 to 50 years, this is all I'm going to do. So I don't look at this podcast or yesterday's podcast and say, we got 10 views. I'm looking at, well, what does this one podcast do over the next 30 to 50 years? And then what is that in conjunction with all of the other podcasts that we do in the next 30 to 50 years? Like, I'm not shutting the doors based off the vision of one podcast.
Correct.
The podcast to me is a partner with many podcasts, with many other distributors. We're going to go social media, we're going to do email, we're going to do an ebook, we're going to do all these different things, and together, all of those things combined will produce a lot more strength than one podcast. Right. And so I think that's kind of one of the things with vision is we have two eyes, one vision. So can we see the one vision and look to the sides and bring everything into that one vision.
To the structure of that, correct.
And I think that's kind of the challenge that comes into, I can't properly do that without experiencing it.
Correct.
So I think the vision has to, like you were talking about, implement that first step. Otherwise you're at a dream. Yeah. So today, take your dream and the vision and analyze it so that you could take that first step. And then the second step is reanalyze that vision. And then the third. So to me, it's this kind of back and forth: vision, experience, vision, experience, vision,
experience, revision, experience, revision, experience, revision.
Right.
But then before you know it, after a pattern of that, you've attained your vision.
Yeah, with people doing their side hustle, you're good at mowing your own lawn, but you don't know the experience of somebody else's lawn. You might not have dogs, and your neighbor might have dogs. Mm. Well, there's a little bit of a difference from a lawn that has no dogs versus a lawn that has dogs. Right. You might be flatland, and your neighbor has a slope. You might, have sprinklers and your neighbor might not. You might have a lot with no moles on it, but your neighbor has moles on it, So all of these are experiences which come into that 80 rule. You don't know how to accomplish those experiences successfully unless you experience them. You can talk. Oh, man, if I had somebody who had dogs, I'd wear rubber boots. Okay, but have you made the experience of mowing the lawn in rubber boots in Florida? Right. It might be like, maybe not, So, but once you do it, you can see and say, that was a success. I'll do that again. That was a failure. I need to revision. I love it. I love it. We want you to go from dreamers to vision makers.